Is King Arthur an actual historical figure? Present-day evidence doesn't pinpoint King Arthur as an undeniable historical individual, comments historian Chris Snyder from Marymount College. His existence is plausible. However, he undeniably existed symbolically for the Britons, representing their defiance against the Saxons. As the narrative goes, the Saxons, a Germanic group, expanded into Britain. Medieval folklore posits that during the late 5th and early 6th centuries AD, an inspiring leader named Arthur rallied the British against these invaders. When did King Arthur's legend emerge in historical records? The tales of King Arthur were first penned by the Welsh cleric Nennius, who documented 12 battles allegedly led by Arthur. These accounts predominantly derive from Welsh verses. But upon examining the battle timings and locations, it's implausible for a single individual to have participated in all. Moreover, the credibility of Nennius accounts has been recently scrutinized. Later Welsh and Breton narratives painted King Arthur as a gallant fighter confronting both mortal and mythical adversaries. These factors indeed cast doubts on King Arthur's tale being grounded in reality. Arthur symbolizes a timeless myth and an ever-relevant message, but he also embodies a beacon of hope specifically for the Britons during a tumultuous era, remarks Michael Jones from Bates College. Is the Mage synonymous with Guinevere? If you're pondering whether a street beggar's, Frisbee's portrayal of the Mage is meant to be Guinevere or an entirely distinct entity, you're in good company. This confusion is widespread. The term mage is essentially synonymous with magician. This character isn't an alternate depiction of Guinevere in a Merlin-like persona, but represents a unique individual. Director Guy Ritchie states about the legend, it's a vast landscape with myriad characters. We scarcely delve into Merlin, bypass Guinevere, and don't delve into the surrounding knights, as cited in South China Morning Post. Guinevere's absence in the film stems from its narrative being set before Arthur's coronation. If Legend of the Sword proves successful, there are anticipations for another 5 sequels. In this movie, the Mage plays a pivotal role in Arthur's struggle. Possessing the unique capability to manipulate animals telepathically, she aids Arthur in discovering his inherent strength. Was there a real city named Londinium in ancient Britain? Indeed. Londinium, founded approximately in 43 AD, marked a settlement on the terrain that the city of London now occupies. By the period believed to be King Arthur's era in the late 5th century, this settlement had largely deteriorated and was sparsely populated. This decline can be attributed partly to Saxon raids, against whom King Arthur reportedly led the British forces. When did the contemporary portrayal of King Arthur emerge, encompassing his enchanted blade Excalibur, consort Guinevere, and the sorcerer Merlin? The iconic narrative of King Arthur is primarily sourced from Geoffrey of Monmouth's 12th century work, Historia Regum Britanniae, The History of the Kings of Britain. Merging legends with actual events, the cleric outlined Arthur's legendary blade, known as Caliburn, later renamed Excalibur, alongside figures like Queen Guinevere, Merlin the Magician, and the devoted knight Lancelot. The exact origins of Monmouth's tales remain uncertain. While some portions might be his own fabrications, others could be derived from preceding legends, the authenticity of which is still under scrutiny. Considering that some of these stories had been transmitted verbally for nearly 700 years, the genuine narrative of Arthur, if he truly existed, might have been embellished or misinterpreted over time. Later, in 1155, Wace adapted Monmouth's work in the Norman language and introduced the concept of King Arthur's court and the Knights of the Round Table. While Wace didn't claim to have invented the Round Table, he alluded to its origins in earlier Breton scripts, a point that remains contentious. Were there really castles during the time King Arthur is said to have lived? No, the introduction of castles in Britain happened approximately 500 years post the era of King Arthur. As a Celtic Briton, Arthur would have embodied a simpler, more rugged warrior lifestyle. Being from the Dark Ages, his attire would have appeared more rugged and less polished. Contrary to portrayals in the King Arthur, Legend of the Sword film, as well as most other King Arthur adaptations, Gleaming armor wasn't a feature of the 5th century AD. King Arthur documentary. So, to what extent is King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, rooted in reality? Most likely, only a minimal part. Considering the disputed historical accuracy of early references to Arthur, including Nennius Historia Britonum, it's unlikely we'll ever definitively determine if King Arthur was a factual individual or a mythical hero popularized through legends. Historians remain divided on the issue. However, it's more evident that other components of the narrative, like the Mage Merlin, Arthur's blade Excalibur, his spouse Guinevere, and his legendary Knights of the Round Table, are primarily fictional and largely originate from Geoffrey of Monmouth's circa 1136 AD work, The History of the Kings of Britain, and subsequent renditions of it. Monmouth's imaginative account isn't deemed a true narrative and holds no weight among historians as a factual record. Regarding the film's over-the-top and fantastical elements like the immense mammoths, sea-human hybrids, and the characters' otherworldly skills, these features were added to infuse the narrative with a fantasy ambience reminiscent of Lord of the Rings. Thus, when indulging in King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, relish the cinematic experience, but approach its content skeptically, acknowledging that even the smallest semblance of reality is probably steeped in fiction.